Well, good afternoon again. I'm sure there are plenty of brownies, so if you want to get extras or first, you're welcome to go help yourself. I want to share a little bit of information with you about the scholarship programs here at Chesapeake College. We have 315 students this year who are receiving scholarship support. That's well over 10% of our student body. The foundation itself has 50 endowed scholarships, over 50 endowed scholarships, and this year the foundation alone awarded $93,000 in scholarships. But that's not our only source of scholarships. If you combine that with other private donations, we actually awarded over $350,000 in scholarship support this year. And what that doesn't include are other donations that don't flow through us. So there are organizations in our surrounding counties who may give the scholarship directly to the student, and so that would be added on. But that's a pretty awesome number, and it is a lot bigger than when I got here 5 years ago, so it's really nice to see that number grow, and we really want to thank all of the donors who are here because they are the people who make that possible. And I may have neglected to introduce Buck Duncan before, who is not only on our foundation board, but is now the executive director of the Midshore Community Foundation, and I think they give about $80,000 in scholarships to our students a year. So they are a wonderful partner, and thank you for being here, Buck. And it is now my pleasure to introduce someone I would like to call a friend, Roger Ralph. I met Roger in connection with some well, I think I met him in connection with his being a donor. He and his wife have established the Roger and Elaine Ralph Scholarship here, but he's also been invaluable in providing advice on entrepreneurship and small business, and just earlier this week was at our small business symposium, and so we now are looking at him as a real partner for things that are happening in the college, and we really appreciate that. And I'm not going to tell you his story because that's what he's going to tell you, and so I would now invite Roger Ralph to the podium to share a little bit about his journey. Thank you.
I just said to Lauren on the way up, it's a little bit different than I think the assignment she gave me, which was to talk a little bit about why you give. And so I guess with that as leeway, I can be a little flexible. First of all, I mean, one thing's really true, and I'm sure you all have had this experience. You go into a luncheon or a dinner, and there's always a certain level of energy, you know, whether it's neutral or it's good, right? Or whether it's pretty lousy and you want to get out of there. And I just love this college. I love the energy of the place, and I suspect an awful lot has to do with your president, because she's open, she's accessible, whether it's to students or faculty. She's willing to try new things. You've got this great nursing building and health building that's going to be opening up in a couple of years. And my friend Dick McCoy and I both come out of Columbia. We're pretty old, and we've met lots of people, and at a certain age you can tell the difference between the people that are real and the people that are phonies, the people who want to get their name in the paper, people that really want to do stuff, and Barbara's in that latter category, so it's been a pleasure. I guess I'm here because I got involved a little bit in talking to a couple of your business classes, and I ended up in 1980 opening up this little health club up in Harford County, Maryland, and it was the county where Cal Ripken, the Ripken family, grew up, and it's called the Bel Air Athletic Club, and we had no money. I couldn't pave the parking lot, and I guess we had about 5 employees, but I took a lot of ideas from Jim Rouse, who was my mentor, and a lot of ideas from Columbia. We tried to be socially and community oriented, and lo and behold, 20 years from, I guess in 2000, 20 years after, we had about 350 employees and 15,000 members, and sold the club, and that was a lot of luck, but that was a nice success story. And when you talk to the classes, the students can really relate to fitness and wellness and the business aspect of that. I can relate to getting rejected by every bank in the state of Maryland, and of course when you don't need them, they're there. But here's what I was going to tell you. Two things today. One is a story, this literally just happened to me on November 8th, and I thought I'd share it, and I think it's related to some of the thinking that I have as I give, and I'm sure that you have as you're a donor. And then the other is I'm going to read the words of some students who've gotten scholarships, because I found it really relevant, and you should be very proud of all of you who are donors and what you've done. So here's the first story. How many of you have ever heard of Darrell Scott? Raise your hand. Has anybody heard of Darrell Scott? And I hadn't either. How many have ever heard of Rachel Joy Scott? Okay, but let me tell you who Rachel Joy Scott was. Rachel Joy Scott was the first child, the first student killed in Columbine in 1999. Do you remember that story? In Littleton, Colorado, April 20th, these two disturbed kids killed 12 students and a teacher. So there were 13 people killed. And Darrell Scott was Rachel's father. And he discovered in this process, as he discovered notes that his daughter had written, that Rachel was very spiritual, cared about leaving a mark, cared about other people. And Darrell is now partnering. I happen to be on the board of the Ripken Foundation, and we do a lot of work in terms of kids from disadvantaged neighborhoods and we're trying to build these synthetic turf fields. We've done it at Memorial Stadium and Park Heights and out in Minnesota. So there are about 25 of these, and we'll hope to build another 25. But at a board meeting November 8th, Darrell Scott came in and told this story about his daughter, and he said, what I did shortly after this is I established this foundation called Rachel's Challenge. And what Rachel's Challenge is a program designed primarily to go into school assemblies, but they also do it at businesses, to combat bullying and to combat kids' feelings of isolation. And he went on to say that we reach 2 million kids a year. And since we've been operating, we've had notes and evidence that we've saved 500 lives. 500 kids who were going to commit suicide and didn't do this because of the impact of Rachel's Challenge. And at one of our Ripken summer camps, we literally had a kid come up to one of our counselors after hearing a session, and he handed our staff a note and said, "Rip this up, I'm not going to do this." And it just sends chills through your body, and you're in awe as you're listening to this father who's lost his daughter and what he's done. He told a second story, and the second story was about 6 weeks after the funeral. He was in an event, and a fellow named Frank Amadon came up to him. He was a Cincinnati businessman. He said, "Mr. Scott, let me tell you a story." He said, "I've had this recurring dream of a young girl with tears coming down her eyes, the water going down her body and watering a flower, watering a rose on the ground, and the flowers growing." And so he said to him, "Mr. Scott, does that mean anything to you? I think it's connected to you." And Darrell Scott said, "Honestly, no. I'm glad you told me the story." And so Frank said to him, "Well, if it ever does, here's my card, call me." 3 days later, the police department in Littleton call him and say, "Mr. Scott, you can now get your daughter's backpack." This was evidence. She was first one shot on the lawn, had her backpack. "You can come get the backpack, and we're finished with it now." So he takes it home, opens the backpack, and there's a diary, a new diary that he didn't know exists. And he finds this diary, and on the back of the diary, there's a drawing of a girl with 13 tears coming down her eyes and the flowers growing up. And so you can imagine, and the reason I'm telling this story and the connection to all of you here today, the connection's this. So you sit there, right, and you can imagine all of you being in that meeting, and first of all, your heart's going out to the father and the mother and the siblings, and what a horror, right? And then the other reaction is you're tremendously humbled to think that this man and his organization is reaching 20 million people, and you're thinking, sort of, what do you do? What have you accomplished? Can you do more? And on the cover of this book, and you can Google all of this, and there are about 4 books about Rachel. There's a book called Rachel's Tears, and part of the cover is, you could picture a pond, right, and dropping a stone, and you all know the analogy of the impact that you have of dropping that stone and the circles that it hits other people. So I thought, what a blessing that some of us are able to give and to give scholarships like this. And when you listen to some of the words of students that have gotten these scholarships, you will realize that at a different level how important the work that you're doing is, and how it does tie in, and how the connection is to somebody like Darrell Scott and Rachel Scott. So let me read a couple of these to you. This is from a young man named Mike, and Mike says, I am a full-time warehouse worker. I have a beautiful young daughter I have to care for. The scholarship allowed me to afford many school supplies and school-related expenses that I thought I would have had to cover through the scholarship I received from this foundation. I am now able to purchase what's needed for school rather than to have to apply for student loans. It helped ease the stress of not being able to afford gas to and from campus. So this was a young man who was doing this when gas prices were spiking, and you don't think of those things. Kelly, thank you for enabling me to reach my goals. The scholarship you awarded me helped me and my family tremendously. I am very determined, committed, and motivated in my schoolwork, but I could not attend school without some kind of help for paying tuition. And this is Amy, and this is an interesting story, and it's a sign of the times. I've made my living as a certified music practitioner. I play at the bedside of people at assisted living facilities, Alzheimer's facilities, day services for the developmentally disabled. Unfortunately, I've lost a number of clients due to budget cuts. I had to cut my travel costs considerably when gas prices spiked. That was my first problem. And then my husband, who had an MBA, lost his job, and we had to live off his 401k. We've had to now live off my income, and I could not afford to go to Chesapeake if it wasn't for your help. It's made all the difference in the world. This is young man McHale, who said, my parents couldn't afford to send me to college. I was laid off from a good full-time job with a tile company due to the housing crisis. After that, I felt I was never going to be able to achieve my goal of going to college. When the college told me the Graysonville VFW, and it's listed in your list of scholarships, gave me a scholarship, I cried. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you. And 2 last ones on this. This is from Tamara. She said, a personal goal of mine was to attend college. I'd be the first person in my family to do this. And although I've just been awarded the scholarship, it has helped me immensely already, because as I've found out, nursing school is not inexpensive. I will be forever thankful for the opportunity you have given to me. Well, everybody's lives are busy, right? Does anybody not have a busy life? Raise your hand. Okay, so I said to Lauren, I'd love to talk to some of the scholarship kids, and it's hard to make connections, but yesterday, as I'm waiting for my car in Midas, I get a phone call from a woman I've been training phone calls, and Jackie's a nursing student here, and she says the following: after 15 years, I got divorced. I now have a 8-year-old, a 12-year-old, a 16-year-old. I get no alimony. I get no child support. I never thought I could do this. I was street smart, but I wasn't much of a student. And now, because of the scholarship and because of the resources available from Chesapeake College, I know I'm going to make it. I know I'm going to become a nurse. And I asked her specifically what she meant by resources. And she talked about the fact that there's free tutoring for the students, and there's help in the lab. And I thought to myself, you all who are associated with college should be extraordinarily proud of that. And I'll now bring this full circle back to Darrell and Rachel Scott. And these were the words that Rachel Scott wrote, and this is how this was found. After she was gone, her parents went into her room and lifted up the mattress and found a piece of paper which was handwritten, and this is what Rachel said. I have this theory. If one person can go out of their way to show compassion, then it will start a chain reaction of the same. People will never know how far a kindness can go. And all of you who are donors have been tremendously kind. And I suspect if Barbara or Lauren were up here, they would say, maybe you can increase your donation a little bit. Maybe you can get a few more friends on board. But when you think about it, you probably know friends that might be able to give a $1,000 scholarship or a $2,000 scholarship. This young woman, Jackie, said, every single penny is important to me. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Roger. Really appreciate the remarks, and you got the sentiment exactly, so we appreciate it. I have the privilege to introduce Megan Galvin, our student speaker, and Megan was recommended to me as an exemplary student with a good story, and has made herself part of our Chesapeake College community. And I didn't realize till somebody pointed her out to me that I've been walking past her every day. Almost every day. She works part-time in our building. So I went and talked to Megan and told her about the Scholarship Lunch. And those of you who, donors who've been here past, I've sometimes talked about when I approach a scholarship student and ask them to speak at the lunch, and some of them say, oh no, I couldn't do that. Yet they all come back and say it. When I talked to Megan, Megan said, yeah, I'd be happy to talk about the scholarship I got. So Megan, who lives in Centerville by way of Annapolis, and is planning to go on to Salisbury, is happy to be our Scholarship recipient speaker today, and I welcome you to the podium.
Good afternoon, everyone. Is anyone as cold as I am? Oh my gosh. I'm sorry if I chatter. I am freezing. Thank you, Mrs. Halterman, for having me speak here today. I am honored to be here with all of you. Dr. Viniar, Dr. Barber, Dr. Midcap, and Mrs. Schaefer, thank you all, and all of our distinguished guests for being here today. I am so excited. As Mrs. Halterman said, my name is Megan Galvin. I am in my second year here at Chesapeake College. I am a liberal arts and sciences major, and I plan to achieve this degree, an associate's degree, in the summer of 2014. And then in the fall of 2014, I plan to transfer to Salisbury University, where I would like to major in public relations and minor in marketing management. I do also plan to attend graduate school and eventually achieve in a doctorate degree, but the academic focus for those degrees is not decided, as that will probably change. But Mrs. Halterman has asked me to speak today about how I got to Chesapeake, the scholarship I'm on, and my experience while I've been here. My experience at Chesapeake College has been wonderful. Faculty and staff, as well as my peers, have been nothing but kind, helpful, supportive, and encouraging while on my journey here at Chesapeake. My professors are always willing and able to stay after and answer any questions that I may have and provide one-on-one assistance with my assignments, and I really appreciate them because I am constantly harassing them with questions that I have. When I wasn't in class or when I wasn't bugging my professors, I was spending a lot of time in the Dorchester building, meeting with advisors, and asking the information desk a ridiculous amount of questions, all to ensure I was on the fast track to achieving my degree. Everyone knew just who I was by my frequent visits, but I did not realize that these visits would change my life. Mrs. Janine Gallagher, who is the information desk extraordinaire here at Chesapeake, made me aware of an opportunity that has changed the course of my education. She informed me that it was called the Ambassador Grant Scholarship, which, if awarded, would pay for my courses and textbooks in exchange for student work as the ambassador to the college. And in desperate need of financial assistance and eager to become involved with the college, I applied that day. I was called in for an interview over the summer, and now here I am today. Prior to receiving this award, I was working 40 hours a week in Annapolis, Maryland as a receptionist as well as attending school full-time, working so I could be able to pay for 16 credits. It was very difficult and it was very stressful, but I am happy to say that with this scholarship I have cut back to less than 20 hours a week. And because of this, I have been able to enhance my experience at Chesapeake far more than I ever thought my schedule could allow. I have been able to participate in Leadership Academy, Phi Theta Kappa Honors Organization, and even take some honors courses here at Chesapeake. This reward for academic achievement has inspired and encouraged me to continue to work hard and reap the benefits of doing so. I'd like to take a moment to thank Chesapeake College as a whole for all of its resources and opportunities it has provided me. My decision to come to Chesapeake before directly starting at a four-year university is the best decision I have ever made. And thank you to all of you who choose to donate to Chesapeake College. Thanks to you, people like myself are able to worry less and learn more. This scholarship means a lot to my family and I. I cannot thank you enough for the financial burden that you have lifted. Thank you again, donors, for your contribution to students seeking a quality higher education. Your contribution to this college is greatly valued, and I am forever thankful. Thank you.
Well, Megan, we're so glad you immediately said yes. Thank you so much for your very articulate and heartfelt words. Every year we have students who outdo themselves by the emotion, I think, in their words, and we appreciate everything you said about Chesapeake, especially because it's all true. And I say that because I hear that from students all the time. We had the British debaters yesterday at the honors lunch, and we went around the room and asked students, why are you here? And frankly, most students are here because it's convenient, or they're just not ready to leave. They don't want to go away from home right away, and being here for 2 years gives them the self-confidence to know they can do well at college. And they all talked about it was the best decision they ever made, because every single person here, every employee here works together to make that happen. So whether it's Janine Gallagher at the desk, or Kathy Barber upstairs in her office, or the facilities crew making sure that when you come here, this is a place you want to learn, even if it's a little cold, but it looks good. And so it takes, all of us are together. And then what we do is we welcome in the people who are here, the donors, to be part of that community, to make things happen for our students. And every success of yours we share. And I look forward to handing you your diploma. That's my favorite thing to do every year, is when I get to acknowledge that success in a very concrete way. So I thank you, Roger, for your inspirational words. As you were talking, I was thinking tomorrow is the 50th anniversary of the assassination of John F. Kennedy. One way to feel old is to think about how long that's been. And I was young at the time, and I don't know if he was a great president or not, but he inspired me. There were specific words that I remember that made me say, yes, I want to know, what can I do for this country? And I have spent my life trying to figure that out. And if it's not the country, it's one student at a time. And that's the way we have to do things. And that's my message to every student here. Your first job is to succeed here for yourself, and then to think about, how are you going to give back? How will you make this possible for the people who come after you? And maybe those are your younger brothers and sisters, or nieces and nephews that you can encourage to get an education. And maybe it's someday being a donor, and you start small and then it grows. So we are all here to celebrate our generous donors and the accomplishments of our students, and we thank you for being part of this. I hope you all have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and I will see every single student here at commencement, one year or another. Thank you.